Hi, welcome to VegaTrends, where we make eating your vegetables a whole lot more fun. My name is Mackenzie, and today I'm in the kitchen cooking up the recipe of the week. This week is one of my all-time favorites. It's creamy roasted tomato basil soup. Tomato soup. Doesn't that make you think of when you were growing up and you would be dipping your grilled cheese into your soup? Today I'm making maybe a more adult variety of tomato soup. We're doing creamy roasted tomato basil soup, and I'm going to share with you all the ingredients that will be going into this soup. So of course we're going to start with the tomatoes, probably the most important ingredient in the soup. You're going to need about 3 pounds of tomatoes. You can use any kind of tomatoes you want to use. Personally, I like to use the smaller grape tomatoes. They're a little bit sweeter. This is an heirloom variety. You can get a ton of colors, but they're fantastic. Just eat one right now. Of course, we're going to need basil. I have a whole bunch here, and I love fresh basil. So I buy several fresh plants when I'm making the soup. Also, you're going to want some fresh thyme. Thyme just adds great flavor to it. Oh, and the smell on it is unbelievable. You'll want about 6 cloves of garlic, 1 cup of cashews, 2 cups of almond milk or any kind of non-dairy milk you'd prefer, a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Personally, I'm using crushed Roma tomatoes with basil. I use about 4 cups of low-sodium vegetable broth, and you will need 2 onions. Alright, when making this soup, the first thing you want to do is get your tomatoes diced up and in the oven, because they're going to take about 45 minutes. And while they're in the oven, you can go ahead and get the rest of your ingredients ready to go in the pan and cooking. So I'm just dicing up the last couple of my tomatoes here. Now, one thing I've done today that's maybe a little different than I would normally do, I had a few bell peppers that were about at the end of their life. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to throw them in the soup. I'm going to roast them along with the tomatoes. I'm just going to toss them right in here on top of the tomatoes. You could also put them in a separate pan and roast them in the oven. I'm going to go ahead and stick these in the oven. They're going to go in the oven at about 375 for 45 minutes. Alright, so I've diced up my onions, diced up my garlic, cut the basil up. That's about 1.5 cups of basil right there. A couple of tablespoons of my thyme. I water saute my vegetables. So there's a little bit of water in the bottom of this pan. It's already warming up, and I'm just going to toss in my onions and my garlic. And I'm going to let this cook down for about 10 minutes until the onions get a nice translucent look to them. Alright, so as you can see, my onions have become translucent. They're nice and soft. Now we're ready for the next step. Alright, now I'm going to add the rest of my ingredients, except for the cashews and the almond milk, which I'm going to save until the next step. So we're going to add 1 can of crushed tomatoes, about 4 cups of low-sodium vegetable broth. I'm going to add my thyme and all of my basil. I'm going to stir that all together, and I'm going to let it cook down for about 10 minutes until the tomatoes are out of the oven. Alright, so my tomatoes are now out of the oven, and they look beautiful. They smell amazing. The whole house smells like roasted tomatoes. We're going to go ahead and throw these now into the pan, which is nicely boiling here. You want everything from the pan to go in there, including any juice that's at the bottom of the pan. That's where a lot of your flavor is, so we want to make sure we get everything in there. Now that I've added all of my tomatoes to the pan, I'm just going to stir it up. Ooh, it looks so good. I'm going to stir it up and I'm going to let it continue to cook down for maybe another 20 minutes. My soup has now had time to cook down. What I've done is gotten my blender out and I've added 1 cup of almond milk and 1/2 cup of cashews to the bottom of it. I'm going to blend those up for about 30 seconds. Alright, this is what's going to give your soup that nice creamy base. Now what I want to do is add half of the soup that I've boiled down here into the blender. You want to be very careful adding hot soup to your blender because your blender is going to get very warm. Put the lid back on and I'm going to blend this for maybe about 40 seconds. Again, you want to be careful, it's going to be very hot. So this is the first half of the soup. I'm going to transfer this to a bowl. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the second half of the soup. Alright, now that the second half of my soup is blended up and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and pour myself a little bowl. Such a beautiful creamy texture. Okay, so that was my recipe for creamy roasted tomato basil soup. As you can see, an amazing texture and color to this soup. It's very creamy, delicious. The beauty with this soup is you can eat it hot or cold, so in the hot summer months, if you're looking for a soup that you can eat chilled, this is a great option. Also, pairing this soup, we love avocado in our house. We eat a lot of it, and it is amazing diced up in tomato soup. I'll dice up an entire half of a avocado, put it in the soup and eat it that way. It's unbelievable. Another thing you can do is a sandwich. Here I've created a sandwich with white bean hummus, cucumbers on a flaxseed bread. Really good. And I'm going to go ahead, because you know you want to dip that sandwich into your soup. We're going to dip it in there. We're going to get a nice big bite. Oh, the flavor combinations are amazing here. Thank you for joining us for this week's recipe of the week. Again, my name is Mackenzie and this is Vegetrends, where we make eating your vegetables so much more fun. I hope you'll join me later in the week for some of my other videos, and I hope you'll make up this recipe. Thank you.